Hi and welcome to the third part of this small business bookkeeping tutorial. In the third part we're going to look at expenditure tracking. So in the first part of the tutorial we looked at invoice tracking, so these are invoices that you send to your customers. In the second part of this tutorial we looked at creating a custom invoice. So in the third part we want to look at how to track what costs are in your business, what are you spending in your business, right? So let's go ahead and open up Microsoft Excel. And we'll click on blank workbook here, and we should label this, right? So we'll label this document expenditure tracking, and let's go to file, save as. Let's go to this PC. So I'm just going to save this onto my same folder on my desktop. Let's go into here and we're going to do let's call this 02 dash, in fact we can just call it 01 dash expenditure tracking dash 2019, so the year that we're doing the tracking, and this will be version 1, right, of this document. So in our folder, if you remember, we have our invoices in here. So we've got our invoice template, we labeled that 01. We've got our original invoice tracker, which is 00, and we can have an invoice or an expenditure tracker 01 as well here. So let's go ahead and fill this spreadsheet out. So what we want to do is what I use this spreadsheet for is to track what costs are in my business, right? So we send out invoices when we want to get paid, but we receive them as well, and we want to have an invoice date here. So what date was this invoice sent to us, and the paid date, what date did we pay this invoice. And also we want to know who did we pay, so company name, so which company are we paying, and a short description. And we also need a payment type, how did we pay, and I want a location as well. So you may be doing, quite a few of the things I purchase, and maybe yourself, you may purchase some services from overseas. So you might be purchasing things from China, America, a lot of things from the UK. So we want to know where is this company located that we're buying from, and we also want the cost here, what did we pay. And normally I put another column in here called other currencies, yeah, something like this. And I normally have like a little notes column here as well. So these are basically our header titles. We're filling the information as we go along. So let's click here and make them all bold. We'll click on the number 1, make them bold so they stand out a bit. If your columns are not aligning correctly, so if you've got things that are overlapping like this, just click here. That highlights the whole spreadsheet, and then double click in between A and B. So double left click and it will spread out the columns evenly. So we just need to do a couple of things. Let's highlight these two columns here. So click on A and then drag across and select B, right click and go to format cells. I'm going to set it to a date here, date format, and click OK. So that will be anything we type in here will be in dates. Name, description, payment type, location. These can all stay as standard formatting, just general. And so same with other currencies and notes. So cost here, we need to make it into a currency, right? So let's click on G, right click and go to format cell and set it to a currency here, and then click OK. So I'm going to make some data up. If you remember in our last spreadsheet, the invoice tracker, we started on the 1st of the 1st. This was a fictional business that we was building this spreadsheet for, right? But it was just an understanding how to get the data in there. So let's assume we started to buy things from like the 1st of the 1st. When you start a business, you're going to need some equipment and stuff, right? So let's close this. So let's say on the 1st of the 1st, we received an invoice. It was for a company, let's just say it was Amazon, yeah? So I buy a lot of things from Amazon. and the description was laptop, right? So just type in laptop computer. The payment method, let's say we paid by credit card, and the location, we bought it from Amazon UK, and the cost was let's say £895, yeah, for a laptop. And other currencies we leave it empty because we're paying in the UK, we're paying British pounds, so we don't need to have anything in here. Notes is maybe just, you can write some notes, those are just general notes, right? Let's just say office computer, right? So you may buy a computer for your office, and then you may buy another one to work from home as well. So you may have two machines that you buy, for example. So that just note tells us what it was used for. So the thing that's missing is the date paid. Now normally, what we should really do here actually is click here, highlight the whole spreadsheet, and left align everything. Just left align it. Click here to left align, and the date paid. Normally, what I do is at the end of like probably twice a month I do this. So every 2 weeks I look at my bank statement and I check what date everything was paid on. Because normally you do a transaction and then the money might not come out of your bank account until the following day, depending on the time, right, when you purchase something. So we'll assume that this came out on the same date. The payment came out on the same date. So all we need to do is click here, press Control C to copy it and Control V to paste. Now sometimes you see these hashes like this, and that means Excel, the width of this particular column is not wide enough. So if you just double click here, it will make it wide enough and you'll see it like that. So if you ever, and that only ever happens when you're looking at sort of currency values. It won't do that when you're looking at like just text-based values, right? So here you can see one row of data. You don't really need to highlight these in any color. You can. Sometimes what I do actually, let's have a look at a few examples and I'll show you why I may highlight them in different colors. So let's drag down one. Let's say we bought something on the 2nd, and we bought some. Let's say we bought it from WH Smith's, right? That's another company I buy from sometimes. And let's say we bought some stamps, right? Postage stamps. And we paid using cash, and that was in the UK, and they cost something like £2.90. That's that done, right? Now I know that I paid something with cash and I paid something with credit card, and that was cash, so it was on the exact same day. So that's two examples of information that I'm entering, and I'll keep all my receipts. What I actually do is I file all of my invoices. So this one would have been an invoice, but this one would have been a till receipt, right? So I have two different types of ways of filing this information. I would say 99% of the things I buy, I use either PayPal or credit card. I rarely ever use cash. It's just easier to track, because anything you pay via credit card, really this shouldn't say credit card, this should say debit card. Debit card, right? Because I don't actually have a credit card, I have a debit card. So make sure you label these things correctly. And this one, so I was saying most of the things I buy in my business are done via debit card or PayPal. So let's put a PayPal example in here. I buy quite a few things using PayPal. So let's say we skip a few days. So normally what I do is if I want to put a new date in, I'll just copy this, paste it down, just double click inside and change it to the 5th, for example, like that. And let's say we bought, what do I normally buy via PayPal? Let's say we bought, let's call this, let's say GoDaddy, right? So we bought GoDaddy, we bought a domain, and maybe you put the name of the domain in there. So let's just call it xyz.com, something like this. That's the domain you bought, just make it up for now. And we used PayPal bank transfer, and then that was paid in the, let's say actually that was paid to, paid in the UK, and it cost let's say £9.95, right? Here it is. So what you'll notice though is when you buy things from PayPal, the transactions on your bank statement doesn't show until like maybe 4 or 5 days later. So normally this is what I see: the date I paid and the actual date that the money came out of my bank account is normally like a 4 or 5 day difference there. And all I'm really trying to do here is track what I've purchased, every single thing in my business that I've purchased. Normally I do this every 2 weeks. I'll keep a file, and I file all of my invoices and all of my receipts. I file them in chronological order, right? So as and when I buy something, I print it out straight away. I put it in the file and I forget about it for 2 weeks. And then when I look at my bank statement, I look at it online, I can see that all of these transactions are coming out, and I can then just easily track and fill out this spreadsheet. And it's worth probably doing this every 2 weeks. If you wait like 2-3 months, there's quite a lot of work to do, and to remember what you don't really necessarily need to remember, because you're going to have all of that information anyway. But it's less painful if you do this every 2 weeks. You don't want to wait 3 months, especially if you're VAT registered, right? You want to be doing this on a regular basis. So let's add a few more examples, and then really there's not much else to explain, but we'll probably do a quick overview of everything we've done so far. So let's say I buy, so let's say I'm going to buy something else, right? So we bought something on the 6th. Let's drag down one, and we bought from AppSumo. So I buy things from this company called AppSumo. It's like little software and stuff like this. In fact, let's do that. And then in fact, let's do SERPLab, right? Let's see SERPLab. So I buy this tool off of SERPLab sometimes, and it allows me to track my search engine ranking. So we bought from SERPLab, and let's just call it SEO ranking checker, something like this, to check your rankings. And I paid using PayPal, and that was a USA purchase because it was in dollars and the company's based in the States. And we paid via PayPal, so we expect that to come out 4 or 5 days later. So normally I'll check these dates specifically on my bank statement, or my credit card, or my debit card statement. I'll check them specifically. But the currency here will say that we paid $5, right? That's actually how much we paid. But when you look at your PayPal transaction, so after you pay using PayPal, PayPal normally sends you an email, and in that email it says, here's your transaction, and you paid $5, and it does the currency conversion, right? So $5 may work out as something like £4 and 10p. It's probably actually less than that. It'd be like £3.90, right? Something like this. Now these three here, normally what I do is highlight them green. Let's make it a lighter green color. And then this one here, I'll highlight blue. So the reason why I'm highlighting them these two colors is I know that everything in blue was purchased overseas, everything in green was purchased in the UK. Just for my own reference. You don't really need to do that, but I think it kind of helps me to keep track of what I'm buying overseas and what I'm buying in the UK. Let's add some grid lines to this. So let's click here to highlight the spreadsheet, and we'll add some grid lines. I prefer to see grid lines, it's just easier to read things. Let's add a couple more examples. So I have to pay a monthly internet fee, right, for my internet access on my mobile phone. So let's put a mobile phone one in here. Now if it's something based in the UK, what I'll do is copy this and paste this here, and I will change the date, right? So let's change this to let's say the 8th, and we will select this row and highlight it green. We can just highlight it like this, and we're doing a mobile phone, right? So I'm just going to make up the mobile phone name company. I'm not actually with this company, but let's just do EX Mobile. We'll make up the name of this company, and this is mobile phone let me just type in mobile phone sim, yeah, something like this. And then with this particular one, we're going to pay using our debit card. So normally what I do is just select these two, cut and paste it down, and then the date paid is normally the day after. So I can even cut this and paste this down, the 8th, and the paid on the 9th. Came out on the statement, and that's normally going to be the same amount of money every month, right? So maybe something like £12. So when it comes to creating this one again, 30 days later, you're going to see another transaction, right? All I do is just I find this particular transaction. Imagine you can see about, I don't know, maybe 10 or 20 more entries in here. and when I come back the following week or in 2 weeks time, I need to make this same transaction again. It's pretty much identical. The only thing that changes is the date. All I'll do is copy this. You can imagine there was loads more in here already, and I'll just go down and paste it. Why would I type that in again if I know that I'm going to be paying that monthly? And in fact, there's a few things in here that will be paid monthly, right? So these two will pretty much, because they're automated payments, the company is going to take the money automatically. Really, these two I could just copy and paste down for the following month, and then copy and paste it down here for the following month. What you need to understand is I would have put more data in between here as well, right? So there'll be more transactions in between these spaces. Copy these two, paste them down, and normally on the same date. So all I've got to do is change the 01 to 02, tab across. The money will normally come out on the same day. Maybe you need to really check the statements, but normally these things come out on the same day, a day before, a day after, but they're very, very close in terms of timing. So those two entries we've done in like literally a cut and paste job, and the information that's contained inside is identical, just the dates change for when you've received the invoice and from when you've paid it. So that's really a good tip for you. Things like laptops, they're going to be one-off transactions. Maybe postage stamps. I don't really buy much postage stamps, but maybe once every 3 or 4 months I'll buy some, right? And domains, these things are like one-off payments or not so regular. But some things in your business you're going to be paying every single month, like your internet bill, your phone bill, maybe some tools that you use, your hosting fees. These things reoccur. So just copy them and paste them down. And fill in all the other transactions that sit between. So when you get to here, you just cut and paste them in. That saves me a lot of time, right? I'm going to delete these because factually they're not really, it looks a bit strange having these blank cells right here. So there's not really much else to explain. I don't want to make this part a long-winded tutorial. It should be simple. The objective of this tutorial is at the end of the month, once you've got, or the end of the year, or every 6 months, or whatever it might be, you can go to your business and you can quickly see how much money you've spent on your equipment or just running your business. Things like staff wages can go in here. Let me put staff wages in, right? So I have staff. So what I would normally do is just copy this, paste this down. I do a lot of copy and pasting, you can see. So we'll set this to like the 12th for the 1st. We'll copy this and paste this because normally I pay my staff on the same day. And let's just put in, this will actually be my own business, right? So it'll be DCP, and it will be staff wages. Well, you may want to track this in a separate spreadsheet, like internal stuff within your own business. But I think it's fine putting in here. But what I'll normally do is highlight this a different color, like orange, because this is like you're almost paying people within your own business, right? It's not external, it's internal. And normally you would do a bank transfer. You wouldn't pay via PayPal. You wouldn't pay using your debit card. You do an internal bank transfer, and you may, I don't know whatever you're paying your staff. Might be like £1,500 a month, whatever it might be. Maybe more, maybe less. You may have a handful of staff. You may have many. You may even separate this into separate people in your business. So you might have staff wages for Paul and then staff wages for Joanne and whoever other people are in your business. So you might have a group to show each transaction separately for each person in your business. If you're going to do that, it may be worth tracking that in a separate spreadsheet, especially if you've got a lot of staff members. I only have 2, so I just paid out 1 transaction. It's kind of job done. So that's pretty much about it. We've got our date paid, we've got the invoice date, the date paid, the company that we're paying to, the description, the payment type, the location, cost, other currencies, and some general notes. And there's not much more to explain here. So let's close this. That's really the end of this 3-part tutorial. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I was going to create a 4th part where I was going to add VAT to these documents that we've created so far. So if you're not a VAT registered business, then that's not really applicable to you. But if you're charging VAT, I think in other countries you might call it taxes or something like this, then you may want to watch part 4 of this tutorial. So let's close this down. Let's do a quick overview of what we've done so far. So in the first part tutorial, we created this invoice tracker, if you remember, and this allowed us to track invoices that we're sending out to businesses for services that we provided. We've highlighted green ones that we can see that the money's actually come into our bank account. The blue ones are outstanding, but normally we have a payment term, and that payment term may say pay me in 14 days. So we have to wait 14 days from the date we send it to the date we're expecting payment. Some people will pay you 30 days. Normally 30 days is pretty standard, right? And then down here, I keep a little note of invoices that I need to send to customers after I complete a project. So if we look at this one here, we see it's for this XY Limited company, which is this one here. So it's related to this invoice here. So this was a 50% deposit invoice for a website design project. So I charge 50% up front and then 50% on completion. So I leave a little note here that I need to remember, and it says final invoice here, and in this one it says deposit invoice. This is just a little note for me to remember to invoice that company when I complete their project, but you know, it's pretty much standard stuff that I do in my business, to invoice 50% upfront and 50% on completion, depending on the client and depending on the size of the project, right? And then we looked at auto filters here as well, how we can filter transactions. We can also do that in the actual other spreadsheet. So we'll come back to that. We'll look at that in a moment. So that was the invoice tracker. And then in the invoices folder here, we actually created this archive, and this archive allowed us to keep a copy of this information that we're generating, right? So normally what I do is that every couple of weeks, this invoice tracker, what I'll do is drag it, right click, drag it into here. So I'll hold down I'll click on it, left click on it once, hold down the right mouse button and drag it to this archive and then say copy here. And then I'll click here and I'll make it version 3. The reason I'm doing that is I'm making a backup, right? So I've got version 1, version 2, and I'd have like 50, 60, doesn't even matter, 100 versions. But those are each backup copies of my previous, week's work or data or whatever it might be. So in this folder, we made this invoice template, and this was basically custom designed in Excel, and it's just an invoice template that allows us to generate a PDF file. So after we create this, really what we did is we made copies of this template to generate all of these invoices. So if we look at this example here, here's the PDF version that we can just print out and send it in the post, but I tend not to send things in the post. I just attach them in an email and send it via email. So this was that for that leaflet design, you see, leaflet design for Bojo Limited, this company. If we go into here, we see it's invoice number 0004. So we look down here and we see 0004, and it's leaflet design Bojo Limited, £75. And it's leaflet design, this is the company, and it's leaflet design £75, and we've got our grand total down here. If you have many transactions in here, remember we created the formula, so it will automatically do the final calculations. And then in this expenditure tracking, what we've done today, there's probably one thing we missed. We can click on number 1 here, and we can go to data, and we can do an filter here, and then we can click on drop downs like this, and how many PayPal transactions did we do. We click OK, and then it will filter out the spreadsheet and show you did 2 PayPal transactions. If you click here, you can do like bank transfers, untick this, and we should only see 1, and the one that we see is for the staff wages, right? But you can imagine when you've got lots and lots of data in here, you're going to have a whole year's worth of information in this spreadsheet. And then I save that information, and then I give that to my accountant. Your accountant now won't have to go through your paper-based book and look at every single transaction and document this in him or herself. So this helps you as a business owner, because now you know what you're spending, and you can sometimes quite often I actually look at this data. So for example, at one point in my business, I was using maybe 3 or 4 different hosting companies, and I had 3 or 4 different servers, and I looked at the cost of that, and I worked out that it's probably more cost effective to have one better server, a dedicated server, something like this, and host most of my projects on that one server rather than having 4 different servers, and I saved some cost in that way. I also looked at domain registration. Was I paying too much for my domains? Maybe I should register them with a different company, maybe somewhere overseas or maybe in the UK, and try and get my costs down. I stopped using stamps. It didn't make sense printing. Why would you print out an invoice and send it in the post and pay for that postage? You might as well just create a PDF and send it via email. So when I first started my business, it was kind of common practice to maybe send a copy of the invoice in the post, but no one does that anymore. So your postage costs literally went from, I don't know, £20 a month to £2.90 every 3 months. So your fees, you can save money that way. I looked at my mobile phone SIM contract with my mobile provider. I called them up and I said to them, sort me out with a better deal or I'm actually going to move to another provider. And that's what they did. They reduced my mobile phone costs. So you can look at this spreadsheet and you can look at your costs and then you can go and do some haggling. At the end of the day, these businesses want your business. They want your money, but you're a customer. And if you've been with them for a very, very long time, they should treat you well. If loyalty is a very important thing. And thanks to the internet, we've got plenty of ways to go and compare business services or even in our personal lives. We've got choices to go and compare and reduce our costs. So use this spreadsheet for that method, but more importantly, use it to document what are you spending. So let's say this is one transaction. These are all the transactions we did in January. This is the month January. We can easily click here and do auto sum and hit enter, and we know we spent £2,423.75 in January, right? That's how much money we spent on wages, and we bought a computer, so that's quite a large one-off transaction. But then we can go to our other spreadsheet, invoice tracker. Let's open this up, and these are all the transactions, all the invoices that we sent out to clients, right? And we can see that our income is greater than our expenditure, which should always be that way, hopefully, right? You're making more money than you're spending. That's kind of the objective, I hope. In here we can see we spent that much and we generated this much. So that's a useful way of using this expenditure spreadsheet and cross-referencing it to your invoice tracker as well. So hopefully that all makes sense. If it doesn't, feel free to just write me a little message in the YouTube comments, or if you see this on Facebook, you can write me a message in Facebook comment as well, and I'll try and help you along a little bit with my knowledge, what I know about this. But this system has served me very, very well. There's a lot of online bookkeeping software that you can purchase. So you can purchase this sort of software online and you can do everything online. But I just like to have everything in front of me. I don't want to log in online. I can do this offline. I can work on this on my laptop. I can work on it anywhere I want. And it served me well for 15 years. So I see no reason why it shouldn't serve you well as well, So let's go ahead and close this down. I'm going to save this and we'll close this down. So we've been over everything in this 3 series so far. Now the next tutorial will be part 4, and part 4 will be only about VAT, adding VAT elements to these documents. So I'm going to create a separate video about that, because if you're a small business and you just started up and you're not VAT registered, then VAT is not really applicable. That's where I started. As your business grows, at a certain threshold in the UK, it becomes compulsory to become VAT registered. You have to do it. You've got no choice. But that's a good thing, right? It's not a bad thing. If your business is growing and you're making more money and you have to get VAT registered, then see that as a good thing. But alongside that, it becomes a little bit more complex to do your books and keep track of everything. But I'm going to show you that in part 4, how we can easily calculate VAT pretty much using some formulas, and how we can add VAT to our invoices as well. So I hope you enjoyed the 3 parts of this tutorial. So you may, even if you're not VAT registered, it might be worth watching part 4, so you can kind of prepare yourself for that point in your business. But if you're not VAT registered, I wish you all the luck in your business, and hopefully these 3 tutorials will help you to keep track of your books. That's very, very important. I learned that lesson the hard way, so hopefully this will help you to keep track of your business and keep track of all your expenditures. And once you've got all of this information at the end of the year, when your business is finished, you can go and sit down with your accountant and you can give them every single invoice that you've generated and sent to your customers, which ones have been paid, which ones haven't been paid. You can show him every single invoice that you actually created, which you don't really need to do. I never print out, by the way. I never really print out these invoices here. I just keep them as digital copies, and all I give to my accountant is really the invoice tracker and the expenditure, the money going out and the money coming in. And he or she may want to see all of your bank statements, for example, but that should be about enough. and then I'll also give my accountant the hard copy of all of the invoices that I've received. So I don't actually print out these invoices. So these ones that I send out to companies, I don't bother printing them out. I don't see any reason why I should print these out. I've got digital copies, and I know in the UK you need to keep an archive of 6 years worth of information. You have to keep that in your business, but there's nothing saying you can't keep a digital copy, right? And it saves you a huge amount of paper and printing as well. But this spreadsheet here, I don't even print that out either. All I do is just give that to my accountant, and then my accountant can quickly see, okay, you've sent out all of these invoices in this year period. All of the green ones are paid. You've even marked it as yes, and all of the blue ones are outstanding. So those are invoices that you're going to have to chase in the following transaction year. And then normally I would keep this spreadsheet like this, and then if someone pays me in the following transaction year, but for the previous year's worth of invoicing, then normally I'll highlight that a specific color in the spreadsheet. I'll change it to something like maybe like it doesn't really matter what color, something that sticks out, right? So this invoice is actually being paid, but it was paid in the following year's worth of transactions, or your following year's worth of business, because you've got to separate your first year from your second year, and you can really check that by the date paid, right? This column here, you can do that by that column, but I like to highlight it in the spreadsheet to show that this particular transaction was paid, but it was paid in the following year. So just pick whatever color you want, but it's got to be something that's memorable. So maybe orange is a good color to show, like in here. And then also, as another note, sometimes let's say sometimes a customer will contact me and say to me, I want to do this. Rarely ever happens, but sometimes a customer will contact you and say they want to do business, and then you send them an invoice and they never pay, and you never end up doing the work. So in that case, normally what I do is make them black and then make the text white like this. And all these black ones are invoices that I sent out, but the customer never paid me and I never did the work. And normally what I do is take this cost value and I copy it and I move it over to this reference column here maybe, and then I set this as a null value, set it to 0, because then your grand totals will be correct, right? But I'll keep reference as to what I paid or what I invoiced, the amount here in this column, in the reference column. Or you can create a separate notes column if you want, you can do it in there like that. So green was paid, blue was still invoices that I need to chase up, orange ones are invoices that got paid but got paid in the following year's worth of business, and black ones are all the invoices that I sent out but they never got paid and I never ended up doing the work. So that's quite a useful tip for you there as well. Okay, I'm going to leave you to it. Hopefully all of that's quite clear. Like I mentioned, if you've got any problems with part 1, 2 or 3 in this tutorial, feel free to write a little comment in the YouTube commenting, or also on Facebook as well. Wish you all the luck in your business. Have a great day.